Good morning, everyone. I'm John Myrie, and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show, we have reports and tips for you from Noah down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And then we have a very interesting talk with Hayward area fishing guide Bill Kutka about fall fishing. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
Get on the water today with the Lund Catch of the Year at Hayward Power Sports. We have Lunds in stock, rigged and ready with Mercury outboards. Save $1,000 on a 1650 Angler SS, $2,500 on a Lund Impact, or a whopping $3,000 on a 1975 Pro V Sport. Lund features boating's best warranty with 3 years of bow to stern and lifetime hull coverage. And no boat holds its value better. Get your Lund at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray bake down draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Hi, this is Ann the Tool Girl from M&M Rental. Here at M&M Rental, we have it all for you do-it-yourselfers and contractors. Concrete tools, metal brakes, man lifts, log splitters, skid steers, and everything you'll need for excavating and trenching, plus much more. And for fun on the water, we have jet skis, ski boats, pontoon boats, fishing boats, kayaks too. From lawn care equipment to tools and sporty goods. We have it all and we deliver. Give us a call at 634-3146. M&M Rental, located on Highway B, Hayward.
We're recording this week's show down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and we've got Noah in here. And Noah, we're getting closer to that turnover time when it normally happens. I don't know if it's going to happen this year by the end of this month, but generally it's getting close, right around the end of September or first part of October.
Yep, we're getting close. Most lakes are hitting that high 60s for temperature, very, very low 70s on some of the smaller bodies of water, but it's high 60s to mid 60s is going to be these temperatures now.
You bet. And temperature varies a lot by the day too. We've had some pretty warm weather, a few days warm, but the evenings and nights have been a little bit cooler, and that usually starts to bring some fish up shallower and the bait fish and stuff, and we're starting to see that on a lot of lakes.
Yeah, on a lot of lakes, as you'll start to see the bait leaving the basins and leaving their deep water structure and moving shallower to feed on any of the weeds and bugs and all that kind of stuff in the shallows as those weeds start to die off.
And that's where the food is. That's where a lot of the predators are going to be, whether it's muskies or pike or bass or the walleyes. But as far as the walleye fishing, what have you been hearing out there and what have you been seeing?
Been hearing a lot of good things on crawler harnesses still. People are buying up suckers and coming back and buying more. And fatheads are working good too. I think those are the most common things. I think the snap jig bite is coming around soon. People are going to start buying up some snap jigs, jig and wraps, hyper rattles, the hyper hammers, those kind of style baits, jig and wraps. Snap jigging them is going to be coming around pretty soon here.
I think you have the fish, both shallow and deep. I think you can find them there right now or in that kind of position.
Yeah, you're going to have some fish that are still going to be pretty deep, and you're going to have some fish that are starting to follow that bait shallow and feeding up, getting their feed bag on for the fall.
I think trolling crankbait should be starting to be productive too, especially from here on out.
Yep, that's going to be another good way to cover a lot of water and target some of those fish.
Talk about panfish out there. Crappie fishing, for me, has been just really good. So is the bluegill fishing.
Everything I've heard, crappie fishing, bluegill fishing has been phenomenal this past couple weeks. Gulp alive, crappie minnows, waxworms, angler worms, all those kind of things that seem to be working.
Well, you mentioned Gulp Alive, and I've had tremendous success over the years with Gulp Alive, especially. And you had the last resort's always going to be go to a minnow, it seems like, because the Gulp Alive usually will produce fish, and then some of the other plastics, if they're more active, and when the more active they get, the more wider of a range of things that you can catch them on.
Yep, and it's always fun to catch them on artificial, but sometimes you do have to go to those stinkier baits like the Gulp Alive or like a crappie minnow.
Let's talk a little bit about the bass fishing. What's going on there? I know you've been doing some bass fishing.
Starting to see smallmouth moving shallower, moving out of their deeper zones, and as they move shallower, they're eating crawfish, and as the bait moves shallow, they're going to start feeding up. You're going to start seeing paddle tails, spinner baits, chatter baits. Those style of moving baits are going to start being very, very dominant in the coming weeks.
More so than more finesse presentations.
Yeah, you can still catch them on finesse presentations when the bite is tough, but I think these fish are going to start putting the feed bags on with these cooler water temperatures.
I think, if you look at most successful tournament fishermen out there, they start out with a more aggressive approach, looking for a bite covering a lot of water with more active baits, and they go to the finesse as things slow down.
That's the 1-2 punch. You go with the moving baits that are going to attract those fish that are in a good mood, and then you slow down to those finesse baits like the drop shot and the Ned rig to get some of those more finicky fish to bite.
And by the way, that tactic works for just about everything out there, any kind of fish. I always start with a more aggressive approach, snap jigging or whatever for walleyes, and as we start to get not getting bites, we slow down, or we get into a bunch of fish. We try to extract a couple more fish by slowing down.
Yep, you use a moving bait to target find out where they are, and then you slow down with something more finesse to get those other fish to eat.
Largemouth bass, you said there's some of them up shallow yet or not?
Yep, you're going to start to see largemouth bass, leaving some of the weeds as they start to die off. You're going to find them on laydowns, logs, and docks, but you'll still see them following the bait around in the weeds until the weeds really start to die off.
And muskies. I know a lot of people come up here after muskies in the fall. Let's talk about the muskie fish. And I know that we're starting to see more action going up shallow, depending on the lake you're in.
Yep, I'm seeing a lot of reports of people catching fish shallow on topwater in early morning and late in the evening.
And sucker bites should start going too. Once we get down in that mid-60s, it seems like the suckers stay alive a little bit better, and the fish really seem to like to chew on them.
Yep, we've been selling suckers. We've got suckers from 10 to 12 inch, 12 to 14, and 14 inch plus suckers, and we've had quite a few people buying them and coming back saying that they were working already.
Trolling is an option that we've got now on a lot of lakes that we didn't have just a few years ago.
Yep, a few years back, they allowed trolling on these lakes, and people started using those mat locks and headlocks and trolling those deeper, and they showed up pretty phenomenally. A lot of fish caught on those baits trolling.
Yeah. If you want to cast too, big rubber baits, the bulldogs, and there's a bunch. And the key there is that you can work them aggressively and get them down deeper, because most of them sink pretty good.
Yep, some of those baits even approaching the 1 pound mark.
And let's talk a little bit about pike real quick here as we wrap up. The pike fishing will get better too, especially for the bigger pike, because they've been out there in that 18, 20, 22 foot of water or even deeper all summer long. Now they're going to be moving back up on the drop-offs.
Yep, those pike are already moving up on those drop-offs, on those weed edges, and you can catch them on a spinner bait, a chatter bait, a swim bait, the crankbaits as well. I've been seeing a lot of pike while I'm fishing for bass, largemouth near the weeds.
And down here at the shop, I know you guys are pretty well equipped for all of the gear that they need, especially a lot of stuff for the muskies, for the Muskie Inc. tournament, which will be coming up the first weekend in October, as it always does.
Yep, we got a bunch of reels in, a bunch of new baits in, and we've got a bunch of rods in as well, just to fulfill your needs.
I know you got one particular reel in. You got a whole bunch of them in. It's a round style reel. And it's a loose reel, and it's a very good quality reel for a good price you got right now.
Yep, right at $100. It's probably the best bang for the buck muskie reel you can get right now.
How about walleye gear and bass gear? You got everything for that too?
Most of it, yeah. We got a lot of spinning reels left and some casting reels left.
And lastly, here, the hunting seasons are open now, and, for archery and everything else, you guys have got all the gear they need for that, too.
Come on down and have a chat with John. He'll cut arrows, he'll put new strings on your bows, and he'll rig you up with everything you need.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking to Hayward Area Fishing Guide Bill Kutka about fall fishing. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hunters and anglers, Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop in the Hayward area. Stop in and check out the huge selection of fall muskie, bass, walleye, and panfish tackle. They also have a great selection of tree stands, camo, ammunition, scents, hunting supplies, and much more. Gear up for the fall at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And while you're there, check out the bottle shop for a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop in the Hayward area.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
The Sea-Doo pre-order sales event is on at Hayward Powersports. The best way to guarantee a new 2023 for next year, and the only way to get the Sea-Doo RXPX Apex 300 Exclusive Edition. As a bonus, you'll get 2 years of BRP warranty coverage for free. Whether you're looking for a traditional Sea-Doo personal watercraft or a Sea-Doo switch pontoon boat, this is the best way to get what you want. Or we still have a few 2022 models in stock that offer no payments and no interest financing for 6 months. See Hayward Powersports today, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, you know, fall fishing is upon us now, and on this week's show, we're talking to Hayward area fishing guide Bill Kutka, who guides not only in the Hayward area here, but also fishes some pro walleye tournaments out there, and Bill offers a lot of great information for fall fishing. Bill, it's good to have you on the show here again. I know we had you on here a few weeks ago, but we're going to talk a little bit about some late fall fishing here, and, you know, we're coming up to the turnover. Probably that all happens by the end of September, early October on most lakes, doesn't it?
Yeah, good to be back, John. Thank you so much. Really had a good time last time. But, yeah, it's every day I'm on the water, it seems like that water's dropping a half degree and some days a full degree on the surface temp. So these colder nights are really going to start producing cooler water, which is going to, you know, stimulate that turnover.
You know, most people refer to the turnover there. It's actually referred to as the time when that thermocline completely dissipates and everything kind of mixes in the lake and the temperature's all the same. But in actuality, the turnover is a long process. It starts sometime in early September usually as the lakes start to cool, and it accumulates when the lake is completely all the same temperature.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like water and oil, right? I mean, although that will continue to separate, but yeah, it's just like you said, it's a process, and within that process too, the fish are reacting differently at each stage of a thermocline changeover. You bet.
Well, let's talk about fish location when we get that actual hard turnover that we refer to as when, you know, the lake tends to get dingy looking, and you got floating weeds laying all over the place sometimes, and you know, it just all of a sudden the fish get hard to find and catch. What do you think people are doing wrong out there?
Well, I think they're staying in their summer haunts. They're fishing yesterday, and you got to fish for today and tomorrow. And you know, at that time when the extreme turnover or thermocline changes over, I'll go skinny. You know, I'll start chasing skinnier water, and you know, try to find those fish that are looking for the good weeds and you know, maybe a little bit more stable oxygen in the water.
Yeah, you know, and that's something I think a lot of people overlook, is because when you've got a stratified lake, you've got obviously in some lakes it's really profound. You have a lack of oxygen down there below that thermocline, and once that all mixes up, it's got to drop the entire dissolved oxygen level in the lake somewhat, and the fish are going to seek out that best oxygen source, which is usually going to be green weeds that are still producing oxygen, especially on a sunny day.
Right. The best analogy I can have is, and I say this in the boat all the time, is, you know, imagine you put a wool blanket that's wet over your head and you try to breathe. That's what's going on. Or in a hot, humid summer day, what are you doing? You turn the air conditioning on. You're looking for comfort, and that's what the fish are looking for. They're looking for comfort and stabilization.
What, as far as walleyes, for instance, if you're after walleyes and you're looking for them, once that thermocline dissipates and you have that turnover, what do you try to present as far as baits and presentations on them?
You know, you know, a jig is always the best presentation. I mean, if I had to do anything and pick one way to fish walleye, it's going to be jig. 90% of the time, you're forced to troll, you're forced to do other things. But at that time, I'll start thinking about, if I'm in skinnier water, maybe floating a walleye sucker, outside a weed edge, or maybe even do a paddle tail type bait and throw some plastics at them and just, skip through the weeds or skip along the weed edge, line up on the weed edge and cast along the weed edges themselves. But, slower, jigging or bobbering, something subtle. And, they still want to eat. They still want to, they still have to, go through life. And, but that's what I'll usually do.
And then once everything's all done, then the fish can be anywhere. So you can find fish, once you get into October here, you'll find fish up in shallow on some days and clear out to the absolute bottom of the lake, it seems like. Absolutely. And that's the key, we were kind of talking about it before the show is, electronics. You don't have to have, big HDS 12 live 16-inch screen. Just get to know the electronics that you have, talk to people, do YouTube searches. But when I do seminars in the wintertime, I've got 4 rules. The first one is don't fish till you see fish. Second is don't leave active fish to go find inactive fish. Stay with those active fish. If you're getting them on a jig and minnow, try jigging plastic or maybe try to do a rip and wrap. See what else they're going to hit. Rule 3 is be willing to leave inactive fish to go find active fish. You can park on them. You can spot lock on them. If they're not biting, go. Maybe somebody comes in 15 minutes after you and they go. That's great. Or you come in behind somebody and they fire and you get to fish them. And rule 4 is see rule 1. So, use your electronics, especially to what you just said. When those fish are transitioning, they'll group back up and find them and fish them. Well, interesting you talk about that electronics because, I have a huge background in electronics. I was a sonar tech in the Navy, and I've worked on everything electronic and mechanical all my life before I started fishing guiding like 40-some years ago. But, when I first started, I had fish locator in the boat. I had electronics, but it was like, to me, it was like, I'm not going to run around constantly looking for fish because these guys in the boat are going to think I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing out here because I'm running around looking. And after doing the radio show for a lot of years and talking to a whole lot of pro anglers, it's been a long time ago now. I went to where if I don't see fish, I don't fish for them. And if I don't see enough fish or fish that look like they're active on the locator or sonar, I don't fish for them. And, it's kind of a thing that if you don't spend a little time, you can spend too much time too, but if you don't spend a little time looking, and virtually any tournament angler out there will tell you this, and a lot of the pro anglers, that, that electronics is a key to being more successful at catching fish. Oh, no doubt. And to your point about being a guide is, you're very much like a concierge. You're there for the experience. That's what the people are there for. But I use electronics all the time. And when I have people in the boat, I do a safety drill. Always kind of do a safety briefing. How do you start the boat? I don't have a key in my boat, so what's the code? We're a 911 community. So once I get through with that drill really quick, I kind of tell them what the day is. And part of the day is I'm going to show you what's going on with the electronics. So if I take an extra 10 minutes or 15 minutes to find fish, the back end bingo is going to be good. But while I'm going through it, instead of them just staring off into space, I have them looking at my dash and say, okay, here's what we're looking at. Look at the contour change from hard to soft on the bottom right now. Look at those fish holding right there. And I'll be damned if you don't mark fish on your side scan, then you go back to go after them and they're gone. And that's the other thing I tell them too, is I said, just because you mark fish doesn't mean they're going to stay there or will be there when you go back to them after you mark them. But if you're in an area, I call them wolf packs. If you're in an area that those fish are roaming and they're chasing bait, they'll come to you a little bit too, but roam around a little bit, find the fish, but more importantly, find that bait. I'll stay in a bait ball and wait for the fish to come into the bait ball a lot of times too. If they're roaming, they're going to be chasing. So, but it's all part of the guiding experience to let them know what's going on and why. And that holds true pretty much for any type of fish you're after, because fish eat fish. I mean, don't care what you're after. They're predators as far as eating. Even some of the panfish are, and they're looking for their food source, and they tend to pack up. And at times, especially certain times of the year, and you find them, they move. I mean, fish got fins, they swim, and they won't stay in one spot there unless they've got their food source right there and handy, and then they'll stay there for a while.
Right, and you'll see what they're doing with that food source too. A lot of times they'll just kind of hang right next to it, or you can see them actually breaking into them. You can see that bait ball kind of bursting a little bit, and you'll see, predators in and around them. And it tells you, it's kind of funny you brought that up too. I was out with Max Walter on Monday night. We were shocking and doing a survey. I like to volunteer time, do a lot of different things, and one of them's giving back to the DNR. But I asked him about cannibalization too. And, walleye will eat walleye. Northern will eat northern. He told me that the northern are the most, are the largest cannibal of the lakes that we have up here, but they eat each other too.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine folks that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Bill Kutka. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Are you in need of marine service? If so, call Earl's Marine, located on County K between the Big Lakes. Earl's Marine is a local Johnson Evinrude authorized sales and service representative. Need a boat lift? Earl's Marine handles shore station. Need a boat or a pontoon for a few days? Just call for rental information. Since 1966, Earl's Marine has provided outstanding marine service to this area. For outstanding service, open 7 days a week for sales, and they have live bait, tackle, and fishing licenses too. Call Earl's Marine today at 715-634-4783.
This year, Dr. Ostrander and his staff at Hayward Animal Hospital will be celebrating 30 years. They thank you for your patronage. Hayward Animal Hospital continues to accept new clients and offers urgent care appointments daily. For same-day urgent care or emergency surgery, make sure you call early in the day as appointments fill rapidly. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com, and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Bill Kutka.
Well, as far as, when you're out there looking for those fish in the fall, when do you decide to try shallow versus deep, or how do you do that?
I let the fish tell me that, John, and it's also bait types. I've transitioned into larger baits right now, larger plastics. Walleye suckers are definitely working well for me, whether it's on a drop shot in deeper waters I'm jigging or on a bobber. But it's just the search. If I'm not finding fish in an area that they have been, they're somewhere. They don't walk down the county road to another lake. They're still in that lake. You just got to find out what they're doing. And then, is it a transition? Are they going to be here for a little bit, or are they parked here for a while?
Well, a lot of the guys out there and the guides, we spend a lot of time going after trophy muskies in the fall, because we know that that's a time to get trophy muskies. But it's not just muskies. I mean, this is the time of year from here until freeze up is going to be the time to catch your biggest walleyes, your biggest smallmouth bass. I could go on and on and on. Even northern pike. It's the time of year for that.
Oh, for sure. Last week alone, John, we put a 20.5-inch smallmouth in the boat, and I had two 26s and a 24-inch walleye. So the fish are definitely, the fall is upon us.
Well, you're actually going to change location here pretty quick too, because you've been guiding around the Hayward area here, but you take off going east, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've been fishing walleye tournaments in Lake Erie for many, many years, and there's a couple big tournaments out there in the fall called the Fall Brawl and Walleye Slam. Anybody can enter them. You weigh one fish a day. It goes from October 25th to November 27th, and I'm going to head out there and guide for about 5 weeks. During that period, the boat can certainly handle it. I know the area out there. There's not enough guides and captains out there. So, one of the seminars that I do in the winter is on Lake Erie. And a quick stat, there's 151 million walleye in Lake Erie last year, over 15 inches. The average is 22 inches. Daily limit 6. Possession is number of days times 6 for Ohio waters. So it's a heck of a fishery. Kind of slows down here for me. I don't ice guide, and so I'll go out there for 4 or 5 weeks and put some people on fish and create memories on larger classes of fish.
Well, when you're talking Lake Erie, you're talking Great Lakes, and Lake Superior up here has a pretty good walleye population. Lake Michigan does in some places. It seems like the Great Lakes have a stable walleye population. I don't know how they do as far as management and what goes on there, but I've talked about this with the biologists and stuff on the radio before, is that it seems like they're struggling to try to maintain a walleye fishery in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, a lot of places on inland lakes, where the Great Lakes just seem to be maintaining that fairly easy. I don't know what the difference is there.
Yeah, it could be the constant feed forage. Lake Erie is a great example. The lake has come back. It's an awesome fishery right now. Years ago the Cuyahoga River caught on fire, and the lake was basically dead. Now Lake Erie holds more fish than the other 4 lakes combined, and that's every fish from shad to salmon. But and maybe it's you take Lake Superior for an example. That fishery is getting better. You got the St. Louis River, but not a lot of people are running up there, or in the bay. Not a lot of people run up there for the walleye. It's the salmon, it's the lake trout, smallmouth are the ones that they target. But there's some toad walleye along that shoreline and in the bay.
You bet. Well, let's talk a little bit about walleyes here, though, right now. Yep. And population changes, and I mentioned earlier here that their walleye population seem to struggle on some waters, but we're also getting some good reports back too. I know the chippewa flowage, for instance, that struggled a few years ago, and they underwent a huge stocking process with a lot of extended growth walleyes, and started doing some of the drawdown stuff again. And now the spring survey they had out there this year, they come up with about 5 fish per acre, which is a fairly high number considering, what the average is across the Midwest.
No, you're right. I mean, when you're in the front of a boat at night, with the fisheries biologist for the county, I pick his brain. We talked about a lot, and one of them was the flowage. And they were out there. They did an 18-mile track, and he's very pleased with the walleye population on the flowage right now.
I mentioned what they figured out was about 5 fish per acre, and if you start looking at what the average fish per acre is, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even up in Ontario, you're very rarely going to go above 7 and 9 fish per acre. So you're generally in that 5-6 fish per acre to 7 fish per acre range, and that puts us right in the ballpark there with just about every place else.
Right, and it's got a nice slot on there too. You get a good chance to get a somewhat of a trophy walleye, but there's also a good chance to keep some good eaters for those that choose to keep them, or just have a good healthy population in that range.
Yeah. So again, you're guiding up until when do you take off for out east?
Yeah, so I'm gonna shut it down here October 9th, and then head out to Erie for the 15th through the November 23rd, October 15th to November 23rd.
Okay, that's interesting stuff.
You'll have to come out there, John. Come on, I've got plenty of room.
Give me some information here on how do they get a hold of you as far as guiding and stuff.
Yeah, so all my information, including Lake Erie, would be on my website. It's www.billkutkaangling.com. Also have a professional Facebook page, Bill Kutka Angling, and phone call or text to 715-699-4833.
Well, thank you for coming on here, Bill.
No, I appreciate it. Let's get out there before the ice comes on, John. We keep talking about that.
You bet.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.net. From there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications. Any and all views expressed are not necessarily those of the station.